the mission to keep as many men on as many guns for as long as possible. We called him Doc. Welcome to Combat Vet Vision. And now your host, Aaron Chief Seaburge.
Hey, how's everybody doing? Welcome to Combat Vet Vision. Hey, this is my series with Mike Amato, P.I.O, Politics, I'm Out. I don't do too much politics on my show, although politics is always around. This is just where we get together. We talk about some things that we're not out there doing this deep research that a lot of people are doing, but there's a lot of people doing some deep research that obviously sets the minds in motion and lets us know, kind of the guided way that life is. And sometimes we can see it with our own eyes. And so we're just going to talk about that. And this is thanks to Sitch Radio for hosting my show, for putting it together, for managing it, making it happen. Most of the time I talk about stuff with the PTSD Foundation and the Warrior Built Foundation, which helps combat vets in a lot of different ways. And this is just where a couple of us combat vets get together and we just talk about some crazy stuff that's going on out there. The way that we look at it, there's a reason why we kind of don't want to be politicians. The majority of us have already served so much, so deep that we come home. We just kind of want to relax and enjoy the freedoms that we have fought for or that we've been involved in. But Mike, hey, thanks for being on my show, brother. I know we gotta.
Hey.
I know we get a little bit together prior to the show and just kind of give some guidance on how we're going to go about it, but nothing really. I mean, this is not a research-based discussion. This is a discussion. I'm not saying we have all the knowledge or anything like that, but we do have some eyes, ears, and feelers out there. We've been around and we've seen some stuff. So, Mike, thanks a lot, brother. Always good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see you too, bud. Yeah, today being our topic of globalization and current things that are about to be coming to our everyday life that we thought would never be possible is actually starting to become a reality. And we've had a little taste of that in 2020. And sometimes here and there, we had pockets of it. But now globalization and the effects of it with war going on, raging around the world and everything, we're going to be hurting most likely here in the next 5 years.
Yeah. And you know what? I think the biggest identifier, globalization has obviously been happening for a long time. It's been slowly hitting here, there, obviously all these markets that have collided and, hey, we can do this and we no longer have to do that. We send all of our stuff to China. So we're not melting down a bunch of steel and creating pollution in our own country, but we're utilizing all the steel that's being made and all these different things. So these markets are being created. They've been created for a long time. But COVID kind of, I think, opened the eyes to everybody that said, hey, this globalization of a disease that's kind of causing this problem across the planet and how we're going to deal with it, that kind of became a reality. And now here we are with war from Russia that doesn't want to see globalization kind of take its foot, and they're trying to slow it down or whatever they're trying to do. And meanwhile, there's a lot of people that want to get involved with NATO and be part of the team and kind of work together. There's a lot of people that still don't want to work together. So, but now it doesn't matter where you are affected.
Yep. Yeah. You just down to baby formula shortages, which doesn't directly affect globalization. But it shows the effects of other things, right? When you have a fight for power, just like Russia is having right now currently, they're wanting to maintain their foothold in their old Soviet Union ideology. And so they're struggling to fight to maintain that ideology since the world has shifted. And by its effects of doing that, have turned around and have created a partial food crisis for the rest of the world. And inflation through the roof. As you know, last year and this year we were heading towards a peak, and then we hit that peak, but we kept going. And by doing that and not stabling inflation, we've created the problems that we have now. And then with what happened with the food crisis during 2020, everybody going and rushing and buying stuff actually dumped everything from the economy, but the ripple effect of that was to, create inflation even more. So it's getting to the point now where if, say, Ukraine doesn't have enough grain to give out to the world, then people are going to starve. and products are going to become less known. Beer, the cost of beer, I don't know if people know this, but an average American drinks about 22 gallons of beer a year. And the price of that's going to estimated to go up 40% in the next 2 years. So, I mean, you look at one thing that is a constant thing that I would get mad at having to spend more
Hey,
money.
Mike, I gotta just stop you for a minute, man. That measurement of that measure, you just threw a measurement out there that nobody ever measures in anything, but I love it, dude. 22
Well, it came
gallons
from the
of beer,
History Channel,
40,
so it's
hey,
something.
40, hey, man, 40% in 2 years. That's a cool measurement, dude. Everybody can relate to that.
Yeah, I mean, when you had a hard day at work and you want a damn beer and now you can't afford it, you're going to be more agitated. And then on top of that, down to your candy bars. And I mean, these are things that, you could probably live without, right? But when it comes down to everyday food items like the cost of bread, that's going to go up another 30%. These are all things coming from Harvard University studies and stuff like that I personally researched because I am a hoarder of sense when it comes to food and a prepper. So I understand, preparing for these things, but I'll be the first person to say maybe it's not just the crazy in me saying these things. These are now people like Harvard, and other news organizations are coming out with these studies that they've done where they've noticed the increase in price. I mean, across the board, you look at corporations right now, they're actually already planning for this by offering more money. If you've noticed your wages dramatically went up in the past 6 months, that's because your company has already noticed that there's going to be an inflation jump again on top of what we've already dealt with, which means, your $10 an hour job needs to be roughly around 13 so that you feel as comfortable as you did at $10 an hour. But I don't know anybody who's comfortable at $10 an hour, period. But then you've got states like the state of California that wants to put everybody up to $20 an hour. I'm sorry, McDonald's workers, no, you're not worth $20 an hour, and I'm all for you, but no, I'd rather not have it. And that creates even more inflation across the market. People got to understand that our choices and our decisions and the path that we're on is going to come to a point. And when people start to starve, that's when the older ways of thought become more prevalent than this modern liberal global view that we've been pushing for the past 50 plus years. I mean, this has been going on for quite some time. Corporations don't think just about their town where their headquarters is at. They think about how can we pull a product cheaper from Africa, or from China, right? I mean, look how many factory jobs we've lost in America. We used to be the number one producer of factory-made products in the world. We are nowhere near, nor can we go back to that. These, because of, it would then raise inflation more because an average American needs to make close to $20 an hour to be able to truly afford. I mean, once you get to $60,000 of personal financial wealth within a year income, you don't really need necessarily more money. But if inflation continues to happen, $60,000 won't be your safe point of where you can live financially. You're going to need to make $80,000. And that's going to create even more poorer and poorer people and the separation between the 1% and then the rest of us, right? And we're just going to disappear. We're going to be so far apart, the rich will be filthy, and we'll be the ones carrying their dirt around all day. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah, we talked a little bit yesterday about how you were saying how, the markets were set so we'd be consumers. Not everybody can just sit there and go plant your fields, take care of your animals, do all that because other markets want you to be out. So how do we do that? We globalize, and you were talking about how everybody's just gonna they just don't have that anymore. The ability to everybody be farmers, and you just don't have the time for it. They want you to have time to go spend your money on other things and do other things.
Exactly. I mean, where do you spend your day at? You're going and clocking in on a job, or you're a business owner running your mill, and you're not thinking about producing your own food because you were promised the grocery store would have it, and they're having to source it through these major corporations that have already globalized to increase their profits, and they're dependent upon Ukraine grain. They're dependent upon Chinese this, Chinese that, made products. And we've always thought in America that irregardless of political standing, we are always going to have, cheap gas and cheap food so that we can at least not have to worry about those things, and a house available, easy enough to buy, right? That's impossible now. I mean, if you look at how inflation is increasing over time, your children will not be able to ever own a home unless, I mean, do you see your child making $1 million in a year? Do you see your child making $1 million in 5 years? Or do you see your child going to school where the current cost of college is $250,000 and then having to pay back another $150,000 on top of that? What job are they going to get that's going to cover that plus the house? You're going to have to pick and choose. So, I mean, with inflation, it affects everything. There's not a single thing that you use on a daily basis that's not going to be the same price as it was last month to next month. I mean, we've seen this with gas. We got a little bit of break there. Biden made some moves, not great ones, but made some, lowered the gas for a second. Then he decided to screw it all up again and piss off Saudi Arabia. I mean, OPEC runs the show. He shouldn't be pissing them off.
And that's something, right? And that, I mean, obviously America has its own oil. We have tons and tons of oil that we could be mining. We could be doing all this. We got coal. We got all this other stuff. But there's all this environmentalists. Everybody's waiting in some sort of line that I've heard of, that waiting for their stuff to get a check mark that says approved. And if they're not approved, it's not going to happen. And they're only approving 1% a day or some weird number, right? But then I also wanted to say, a lot of markets were getting along, right? Everything was looking pretty smooth for a lot of the point. But somehow or another, this oil crisis, because Russia's not sending its oil to the EU now, so there's going to be problems with that. So now it has to be sourced from all these other areas that were already kind of tapped out. And so, all these refineries that weren't being, probably upkept or, waiting for another refinery to come online to fit the population. We've all decided, hey, let's go with the electric vehicle. Let's try to do all these other things. There's a lot of environmental pieces in there. There's a lot of jealousy and kind of coordinated weird stuff. And no market is free from any kind of politics that doesn't hurt somebody, and we talked about that, Mike. We talked about there's not a nation out there that probably isn't have some sort of corruption on its list of things. I mean, I look at America and some of the things that we're doing, with the open borders and stuff like that, man. If you're living in your house, and you certainly believe in that open borders are the way to go, your door better be open too. Because, if you don't believe that you have some ownership to some part of things, it's going to affect you eventually. They'll be camping out on your yard or in your front yard or somewhere, somehow.
I mean, in the next 2 years, we have a lot of stored Federal Reserve. I mean, the Federal Reserve has got bunkers across the United States full of crap, right? Stuff that they can pull out whenever crises in hand. Sadly, our fuel reserve is at the lowest it's ever been, ever. I mean, so we don't have a fuel reserve that can actually sustain us. There's nothing to the economy that we can stimulate without saving the world. I mean, we have to stop war in Ukraine to allow the farmers to farm. You got tanks trying to drive through there because it's getting colder now, so everything's freezing back up over there. So I mean, you got tanks and everything running through these fields and fights, and I mean, nobody's going to go out and farm that field until it's looked for a mine. If they're smart. You've got corruption across the entire planet. You've got issues going on in Africa, which is already a continent that has a very hard time feeding itself. Then you've got China and how deeply embedded our economies now. I mean, you want to talk about globalization, two great nations, America and China. We are pretty much this now. You can't sit there and say whatever you're touching or viewing isn't made in China. If you use an iPhone, it's made in China. Why can't it be made here? I mean, Joe Rogan said it. He's like, I'd rather spend $500 more on the phone knowing it's made in America than made in China. Well, it's too late, Joe Rogan. We've already done it so that the jump back would be triple. It'd be more than your 500, because it takes infrastructure. And those who spent the time on brick and mortar building those infrastructures are the ones who own the market. And with food and grain, yeah, we need to push farming more, but we've been for, over a decade been paying farmers not to harvest because it's about control. It's about controlling the market and not letting outside entities and companies come in and control our individual market. But the thing is, our corporations have been in bed with those other ones and those other nations to where they've been behind the scenes doing it, even though we have a lot of agricultural federal laws to stop these things. But we can't stop offshore bank accounts and funneling of money. These things here are creating problems and creating wealth, for that 1%. So, I mean, if you're on a board and you're part of one of the major 1% companies, Morgan and Stanley, man, your profits are probably going to triple in the next 3 years. Why my ass gets more poor, So, I mean, we have to think about the little guy, the big guy, and the middle guy, and the consumer right now is the buyer. That's the driver of our motor and our system here in America. There's not a single American that has been bred to not be a consumer. Each and every one of you are. Everybody who wants to be an American that's came over, whether illegal or not, you're here to consume. We're not, like we talked about, we're not sitting there making our own flour. No. You know what I mean? We're sitting here and we're getting down. Now, we can cut and make adjustments to our lives, but that takes away times from our jobs and our families. Nobody wants to work 24/7. We're trying to get out of the medieval times, right? But with globalization, there is some things that I don't think people have really evaluated. The only way your electric vehicle works in an American market is globalization, period. You can't produce batteries on a scale that they're being produced in China. There's the cost of an American factory worker is like $33 an hour to keep him clocked in and focused, because whether you want to admit it or not, if you're American, you're a little ADHD. You can't sit still like me. You got to fidget, move around, and you want to do something else. You want to have a life, right? So we send these things offshores to those people that would look at it as a blessing when we look at it as a curse. And that's great. But then now you've got several 100,000 people less than the age of 20 in Africa currently green mining, where they're sitting there with a metal rod just digging through rocks and dirt to bring in these specialized ores that are needed for these batteries. That's slavery. They're not being paid shit. You're spending, how much is a Tesla? What, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 for a Tesla? How much is the battery pack system in itself? I believe it's about half the cost of the vehicle. The vehicle is very cheap.
24 to 28,000, something crazy. Yeah.
Something crazy. I mean, I just looked at a solar battery for my house to have solar put on my house, and he said $56,000 for a battery. Now, how much of the poor little African kid is getting? $1 out of all that, so you've got all these little hands, and globalization, it has its pros and it has its cons. But with war breaking out, it's the system itself. And you would think that all the countries would unite around globalization because it's more financially benefit. China, they are a factory of people. That's how they've been for over 1,000 years. Their people are bred to be workers. bred to be highly efficient. So they work great in these type of situations. You know, we've got Russia, a great producer of natural gas. I mean, they are powerhouses in themselves, but now they're about to, how many countries are about to try to put in the dark that we've got to rush to send natural gas via ship.
Generators?
That's twice the cost.
Not to mention that.
Yeah. I mean, shoot, I've got 1,000 rounds of Russian ammo because it's cheaper. I mean, I'm
not sure how much you can trust that, Mike.
Well, I've been shooting for the past 5 years, and my weapon hasn't blown up, so we're okay. But you know, we've got to look at ourselves again like we should be for everything, and we need to really prepare ourselves. I really strongly believe in the next 2 years there's going to be a food crisis that is going to create things that happened in 2020. Not saying it's a permanent thing, like, oh my God, I can't get a bag of flour to make tortillas or whatever. You know, no, you'll probably still be able to get that, but the cost is going to go up. And what is it, $600-700 to feed a family? Imagine it to be 12.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? That is a scary thought even for me, and I'm debt clean. So I can imagine the person that's living paycheck to paycheck, what's going to happen to them.
Yeah, I think a lot of lessons have been learned by you and I, Mike, and I think when you think about how you approach life now, it's great to have these great dreams and this and that, but to minimize your life to a point where you can really enjoy it with what you got. I think that's where you need to kind of have some focus in that for the realization of it all, because the competition out there is great. You can chase that giant dream, like you said, but it's going to put a damper on your quality of life. And, the system's built. Everything, it's almost like the structure of everything is almost completely built. It can be wiped back down and reslated. And that's what's happening. A lot of places that were like ruined, look like the ass end of the planet, that nobody would want to live. They're going through and ripping that apart and turning it into the live, work, play globalization that they believe in, and it's working. And that's really, America was kind of built on this whole thing, and Ford kind of built these cars, and they said, hey, now we can spread out across the planet. We don't have to be so congested and on top of each other, but we're gonna end up right back on top of each other because the gas prices are too far to live out, and you can't get all those products. You can't get all that entertainment. You can't get all this or that, whatever you want. Like you were talking, we talked a little bit about it yesterday about the Romans, how they built their cities. If you want to go into that a little bit,
they were the inventors of. It wasn't Henry Ford. All he did was look into history and pull up moments, but they were the first people to kind of create, a huge system to produce flour, right? They needed flour, and they needed people in their cities to make their economic engine work, right? If everybody's moving to the countryside, and that's great. Okay, awesome, welcome, thank you. But you're not starting farms, you're not doing anything. You're acting just like in a city, and you're wanting that city life in the countryside. Well, I can tell you, same thing the Romans did to keep them in the city was to say there's food here, right? And you're going to be pretty starving pretty quickly if you're in a city and there ain't no food showing up in your grocery store. What are you going to do? You're going to riot, rob your neighbor? I mean, we might all make those decisions if we were starving to death, and that's understandable. But you need to really think about the system and where our country's going. You need to think about our political standing. People that are representatives that we have chosen, we need to make sure we're choosing ones that understand these crises that are about to come. Because, World War III, yes, it started the moment Russia invaded, right? If they invaded Ukraine, World War III started. It is now just an economic thing because Ukraine's holding their front. If Ukraine fell, it would have been a bigger deal, okay? It would have been a bigger deal. But we're able to make sure, and those people are badass enough to kill the living shit out of anything that come in their neighborhood and retake it. They ain't done, and their resolve has never been close to being done. They're going to keep pushing. Now, with that, though, we've got the issue with grain. Most of our wheat comes from there. If they can't produce it, then we're going to have a struggle. That means everyday products. I mean, how many things do you think you use that have wheat byproducts in it? Almost everything you touch and eat has a wheat byproduct in it. There's nothing you own, unless it's like organic oatmeal, right, that doesn't have at least a wheat byproduct in it. And we need these things. I mean, Halloween's coming. Your candy next year is estimated to be 15 to 20% more in cost. So it's going to be a little less candy for the kids. This right here shows not the extremes that I'm leaning towards, but it's bringing us close to them. And all it takes is just one more thing to go wrong. And if I've learned anything in life, you're going to always have something fucking wrong going on. I just tried to work on my truck. Let me tell you, I just found a problem on top of a problem. Now I got to replace a brake line. You know what I mean? And that ain't even on the vehicle I wanted to work on. So we've got to beef our independence. To be an American is to be free and to be able to have your promise of a pursuit of happiness. But if you take away the inability of the promise and say all you're going to do is struggle as an American, nobody wants to be an American anymore. We need to continue growing. We need to look at globalization and fix it so that our supposed allies or non-allies, our enemies, all together are forced to listen and pay attention. If we decided to say, Russia, we're done with you, we're going to stop feeding you, Russia's going to send out viral pictures of babies dying because they're starving to death because we didn't let them have food. So just because we're at war with somebody or just because we disagree with their point of view doesn't mean that we can actually stiff arm as strong as we would like to. I mean, we could stop the war right now by doing that. But you're not going to change the ideology. You're going to reinforce the ideology. So that's why we're only funding certain things. And that's where you see this weird thing where we say yes to Ukraine one day and then no, Ukraine, we're not going to give you that the next day, because we can't piss off our enemies to the point where they'll want global war. I mean, you don't want to give up your freedom. I don't want to go back to war. I'm fucking sick of it. It's annoying. It's a waste of time. I mean, we just kill each other. I mean, and I don't eat as well. I like to be fat, and increased competition is good. I have no problem competing with China. I have no problem competing with Russia, but we don't need to be so dedicated on them to survive. And we are. And I don't even know the answer to fix that. Normally I have this is how we do it. Fuck no, I don't even know. I looked up Stanford University. I don't even know, but this is something where we got to come together and start really getting at the table to the roots of these problems, because in the next 2 years, you won't be able to afford the good beef. You won't. It's $5,000 a head right now for grass finished beef. That could triple. I mean, what is going on in Alaska? We've got no crab this year, so expect that to double, right? So then we've got what else? We've got literally a little bit of everything going on that is causing problems, and it looks like we lost Aaron there. Oh, there he is. Hey, I thought something happened, but when
that globalization of internet doesn't connect right.
Doesn't connect right. Exactly. I mean, economic growth, globalization has pushed us in America through the roof. Access to labor. There's a lot more different jobs now. You're not just needing to be a factory worker. We've got beautiful ideology of our youth. Everybody says that the new generation doesn't know what they're doing. No, they just don't want to do what their parents did. And you know what? I agree. I didn't want to be a butcher, so I never became a butcher. That's what my father did, and that's what his father did. And then we've got access to resources. The only way we're able to get that Tesla to you right now is China. So China and then Africa and the global mining of what's going on today, increased in global cooperation. It was going good for a minute there, like you said, Aaron, but shit's hit the fan. So that's not going on, right?
Yeah,
So,
and you know what? There was a lot of people. There was a lot of countries trying to get along with Russia. Just like we're
just
trying
like
to get
us,
along.
we
Yeah,
were.
just like we're trying. We're trying. You want to believe that people are going to be pretty good to go with things.
Mhm.
Maybe they're not going to be. They want to be as equal as we are. I mean, not everybody is. And I'm sorry to say, but the rest of the planet speaks English because we pushed that for some reason and it worked.
Well,
And
because
so
America's that
we are,
screaming. I have
yeah, we're
no
the
problem.
screaming
All
kid.
my friends, all my friends in Europe and abroad will sit here and laugh at this. We are that screaming kid that doesn't give a fuck. We're going to get our way.
So business is conducted in English, right? And
yeah, used to be free.
that's yeah. So I mean that's the advantage that we have over the rest of the planet. But and America is a good example of globalization from the beginning. We brought everybody from every country, and we created America. America's full of every facet on the planet that you can imagine. I don't think there's anybody that's maybe one or two cultures that might not be in America. But that's globalization from the beginning. Pow.
Day one, yep. Yeah, that was the
From
whole
day
point.
one.
People always say, I'm an American, I don't have culture. No, every culture is your culture. Whatever you eat every day. I'm a white dude, but I love Mexican food. That's my soul food. You know what I mean?
Hey,
And
in America, you get to pick your culture. You get to
yeah,
pick your sex.
pick
You
who
get to
you
pick
want.
your sex too, apparently. But
Yeah, yeah.
there's
I'm
a
gonna
whole
pass
bunch.
the helicopter. I go in for the sex change. They're gonna rip off my dick and put missiles down there. Nah, sorry, that was too much. But anyways, we with it all, you guys got to pay attention to this because your life, your financial future, your goals are going to be at risk, and that's the first thing to go. Extremes are going into that grocery store and noticing the product not there. And I feel for every mother that had to deal with formula, every single dad, every family, everybody that had to deal with the formula crisis. That was scary, and then you look at everything else. I mean, the cost of beef right now in Texas, there's a serious drought going on. They're selling their cattle to downsize their herds, and because the cost effective. I mean, it's got to make sense if it's going to make dollars, and they're having to sell their beef, which is then going to increase within the next year. The cost of beef, which has already gone up, it's gone up an extra $2.50. I don't know. I buy the good shit. I don't buy the cheap shit. But even the cheap shit, right? You go into Winco and you buy that huge tub. I believe it used to be, or that huge tube, not tub, tube of beef. That is, that's gone up an extra $3. And I know families that used to live off that. They ate a little bit off that, and that was where they got their protein. I remember meeting a guy that ran a gas station down in Pittsburgh, California, and he was from Jordan, and he told me the cost of meat in his country compared to here. He said, "We don't eat meat. We might eat meat once a week. The rest you're just getting from whatever you can get." He's like, "That's why we eat hummus. It's got a little bit of protein in it. This is why we eat this and that. We go to other products." Well, that's what's about to happen here in America, and that takes away from the American dream. I think every person in America should have the ability to eat a steak every night, but that's expensive, right? And just like in the Roman days, to keep people in those cities, they found new and inventive ways, to bring the cost of food down. So much so that they were able to make, over 1,000 tons a day of flour without slave labor, using water wheels. That's very inventive. So I say to you guys, the only thing I can think of that can help fix this situation is our great minds. So if you're sitting there and you got an idea, push it like cancer on the world, man. Make sure everybody fucking feels it. We need ideas. We need change. We need change that'll push us further. I mean, that's it. That's always been the answer. And, we need our minds. We need to come together, and we need to start listening. One thing I've noticed with major corporations now, like Tesla, I found out through people working there that they have ideas protection, right? You get fired if you steal somebody else's idea. So you could be Joe Blow on top, Mr. Boss Man, and you submitted the idea, but because you put your name as the one who thought it up, now you're fired because guy on the bottom. So we need to all realize again that yes, we've globalized, but your individual self is the changer and the controller of your future still. I mean, you can start being more dependent upon yourself. You can move to the countryside and start to farm. If you're financially capable, I recommend it. If you're a city dweller and you want to stay in that city, you need to start thinking, how can you survive when things start to get a little sketchy? You need to protect yourself and have a little food stash, because hard times may not come by just it being on the shelf, but the inflation cost will make it harder for you to afford that food. And I really strongly recommend you start reevaluating now. It's always the finance insider that plans, Enron, right? So I want to make sure all you guys are able to buy what stock you need now and have it. That doesn't mean we all rush to the store and buy everything at once. I'm not trying to say freak out, but you need to start thinking about what can you cut back, or if you even can. It's going to get nutty, and it's getting nutty fast. I mean, how many times can we raise interest rates? That's going to have to stop at some point. So I think the bubble will burst. It's just a matter of when. Nobody can always say when, but we can estimate and we can prepare ourselves to be more capable to do better. And that's what I think we can do.
Well, good stuff, Mike. I know, the show, we're 37 minutes into it. It's been really good. It is. And globalization really, I think, has also been affected by our ability to communicate. The communication, obviously, I'm all the way in Poland. I'm having this great conversation with you right here, right now, and I can have that with you at any given time of the day. Face-to-face communication with everything that's out there, and you got other people that are trying to cut that communication off and push their own agendas. And it's a power grab, like you said. It's a huge power thing, and it's a power struggle. And hopefully we can work some of those things out and come together, because sooner or later, Mars looks like it might be the next planet. I mean, I'm just throwing some weird shit. I'm just throwing some weird stuff out there, man. I mean,
that's all right, man. You heard Tesla, man. Tesla's about to drop a whole new robot for your house, follow you around and fold your laundry, take care of you. I mean,
yeah,
we can't stop progress. We just need to reinvent the way we're going about it. When something works, great. They always say, don't break it. Don't fix it unless it's broken, right? Well, we need to always look at things as if it's broken. We need to always prepare ourselves just in case if it does. That's why you carry a little extra oil with you and a quart in your car. So I mean, we need to sit there and we need to just reevaluate things a little bit more and pay more attention to the world and our choices and our leaders, because their decisions are deciding your food, and that is a serious thing. That's a very serious thing.
Yeah, and that power is always shifting. Amazon didn't exist forever, and neither did Google, and all these different companies that came up. I mean, it's interesting because I look at what was that radio when it came out on Sirius radio, right? And I get a call from a guy eventually. He's like, hey, do you want to up your Sirius? And I had it for like a year or two. I said, hey man, this is an example of where one technology kills another. My phone has unlimited data, and now I can listen to Pandora for the rest of my life. I no longer need your services, and I appreciate you. Not to mention, I can watch YouTube at the same time. So,
you get everything on Sirius on YouTube.
Yeah, that stuff's all free. I have to watch a couple advertisements, but hey, thanks a lot, Sirius. You're just not. It was a cool thing at the time, and then you just saw it like go away because, hey, taxis were cool too, but all of a sudden technology came around and we have Uber, and no matter where I'm at on the planet, I can call a car, and it's kind of the same thing. It's like it's interesting. So you can't stop it, and nobody should. We should just mill it into your lifestyle, and if you don't like it, try to get out in the boonies like you said and live out in the but eventually you might starve, and you can live out
If you don't know how to farm, I recommend you don't go do it. But
yeah.
I love how I've said it, and a lot of other people say it. The new generation is full of a bunch of weaklings. Look, everybody's got their depressed generation. You put 3 generations of people now being force fed a bunch of bullcrap food that fucks with your hormones. This is what happens. Our youth. But our youth is also being extremely inventive. They know that they're not going to get that house, so they're going and buying a Mercedes Sprinter van, decking it out nicer than my house that's $230,000, and then driving around the entire world wherever the hell they want to go. And they're working from their computer and they're pulling in the money. I mean, that's awesome. Innovation matters, and we need to continue to innovate. That is the number one thing that'll always save humankind is innovation. That's it. I mean, we could sit there and we could struggle, or we could figure a way. And I know America, and I know that we're always going to find a way because we're that screaming, kicking kid that doesn't give a shit. So
Hey, and hey, Mike, just throw out any last words, and if someone wants to get a hold of you, they definitely can go through my show. But go ahead and throw out your disclaimers.
If you're any veterans that are needing help out here in East Tennessee or in Southwest Virginia, you guys can reach out to me. My email is amato551@gmail.com. From there, we can check each other out. I keep my social media kind of locked in because I don't want to. I've got too much spammers and people trying to hack my accounts. That's about it. Other than that, you guys keep looking into it, keep looking in your lives, keep pushing yourself, keep trying harder and harder. Just because it's gotten tough doesn't mean it's over. There's no such thing as quitting. There's no such thing as retreat. The only way is up. Ain't nobody going to throw you further down because we got enough tough people in our corners that'll defend us. And if you ain't got someone, reach out to me. I'll be the tough guy in your corner. That's how we work at Warrior Built. All right. Have a good day, everyone.
Hey, thanks a lot, Mike. I appreciate it. Hey, this show is awesome in a lot of different ways, and really, Mike and I are just two guys that come together. We talk about some things. I don't do a lot of research in this stuff, but I'm watching the news all the time. I'm watching this and that. I'm trying to, decipher my own decisions on how this affects me and the approach of it all. And I've lived through some of it, obviously, with wars and I'm talking about Iraq, the Iraqi war 3 times there. And when Russia attacked Ukraine, I was in Ukraine. We had to leave that place. So I understand this principle. And Ukraine was really doing some really good stuff. The infrastructure, the people, everybody was working. It was a very nice culture and everything. So it's really sad to see what's going on. But hey, that's my take on it. Hey, this is Combat Vet Vision. I'm glad that you guys are here. If you need to get a hold of me, do so. If you want to get a hold of Mike, get through to him through me. You can do that. But until next time, strength and honor. Out.